Back to the programme, we're discussing the Indian Prime Minister's visit to China and what it means for India-China relations. Joining us is Tarun Vijay in New Delhi, a member of India's Parliament. And joining me on set is Moeed Yusuf. He is Director of the South Asia Programs at the US Institute of Peace here in Washington, D.C. Thank you both very much for joining us. Let's start with you, Tarun, in New Delhi. The optics of the trip look fantastic from a PR point of view, both leaders enjoying themselves, lots of photography opportunities. What about the substance?
The substance is that it's a great Himalayan handshake. Both the leaders have shown immense statesmanship, and when they were having selfie, it was just not two leaders. The 2 billion plus people were having selfie yoga in China. It was a Chinese namaste to an Indian ni hao. Everything is possible now, and the impossible word seemed to have vanished from both the relationships. It is a great opportunity for both the countries. When India and China speak in one voice, Asia speaks in one voice, and then it becomes possible to have it, make it an Asian century. It's a new era, in my opinion, and I have been always saying that if the 2 billion people join together, there will be a greatest opportunity for peace, prosperity, and togetherness. Modi has begun an era of walking together, dreaming together, achieving together, and all other things like trade agreements, $27 billion, and appointing a special task force for addressing the great trade imbalance. They are, to me, secondary to the chapter of cordiality and trustworthiness that has begun now.
Tarun, let me follow up.
That India and China have created a new future.
Tarun, let me follow up with that before we go to our other guests. You're obviously enthusiastic, as both peoples were, about this visit. But you touched on it. The trade imbalance is still there. There is no immediate solution. Still difficulties over border disputes that has not been settled. And is there still a wariness between Beijing and New Delhi, despite all the heartfelt efforts of both governments?
I think New Delhi and Beijing are now on the threshold of resolving all the major issues, including trade imbalance. That has been given to a multi-task force, and that will take care of correcting the imbalance. Once the Chinese investment begin coming to India, and $27 billion is not a small sum, the trade imbalance will be taken care of. There are other issues, like border issues, and both the leaders have shown a rare confidence that this issue will be resolved in a spirit of friendliness and in a spirit of cordiality. It's a miracle that India and China are in relationship for the 2 millennium. In the last 50 years, not a single bullet has been fired on the border.
Moeed Yusuf, can I bring you in here? Because obviously we've seen the pictures, we've seen the PR. How does this play out regionally? Because, you know, we've got to think about Pakistan, we've got to think about the United States, of course, which itself has been courting India as well, and India's relationships with not just the rest of South Asia, but also East and Southeast Asia as well.
Look, I think China has come into the region in a big way. There's no question about that. You've seen China's overtures to Pakistan, just sort of giving a $46 billion deal to Pakistan just 2 or 3 weeks ago. Now with India, I think the Chinese have made a statement which is that they want to connect with South Asia and connect South Asia. The US, of course, has been talking about this for a long time. So to me, quite frankly, the real game changer is how does the US idea of this new Silk Road and working India, Pakistan, Afghanistan to Central Asia and that connectivity ties up with the Chinese idea of China, Pakistan, Arabian Sea, and then China, India.
The one road, one belt policy as well. Do they connect?
Not yet, not yet. And actually, I've been part of some discussions over the past week with Chinese and American interlocutors where it seems that there is more of a competition in both sides' minds than is collaboration.
And is India ground zero for that competition, considering the suspicions in Beijing about US overtures to India when it comes to potentially containing China in the Indian Ocean and also in Asia?
I think in a lot of ways India is, but it's really the India-Pakistan relationship that's ground zero. You know, unless you can solve that puzzle, at least to the point where India and Pakistan are willing to connect with each other economically, I don't think the US and Chinese initiatives can come together. And if they don't, quite frankly, they'll be good, but they're not going to connect South Asia in a way that Asia requires to become the real economy for the 21st century.
Tarun Vijay, I want to ask you about where we can continue to build trust between Beijing and New Delhi. This is a big step, as you said. There is a list of cooperation agreements that look very similar sometimes to what the US and Beijing have put in place to try and build trust. Do you see that trust going forward? And what are the real tests here?
I think India believes in one people, one word policy of the ancient times. We said that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but certainly we would not like our relationship with US and with US to reflect upon our relationship with China.
Well, Moeed Yusuf, I'd like to bring you in here because this sounds still like a zero-sum game. Diplomacy in the region, a lot of people, including China and the United States, are trying to move away from that. Can we?
Look, I mean, this is inherently contradictory, right? On the one hand, we want to bring the region together. On the other hand, we're going to raise questions about where a road is going through, whether it should not, which is the old guard. And the two can't come together. I think if you've got to do business with China, there are two things to note. One, Chinese pledges are always more than what comes through, for various reasons. In Pakistan, only 6% of what's been pledged over the past decade has come through. Second, China is going to do business with Pakistan the Chinese way and with India the Chinese way. So if India and Pakistan are going to get caught up on where the road goes from, are you with us or are you against us, I don't think the Chinese are going to have too much time to listen to that. So the best thing for South Asia is for Pakistan to cash in on its relationship with China and India to do so with its own relationship with China, but not get into the petty politics of who you're really supporting in this game.
And in terms of the wider relationship in the region, especially when it comes to, for example, the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea?
I think it's very competitive, to be very honest. I think the US-China relationship in the South China Sea, the India-Pakistan-China relationship in the Indian Ocean, unfortunately, we're still more competitive than collaborative. And unless we can change this in letter and spirit, and it's really a change in the mind. We've got all the things required on the ground. It's a change in the mind in India, in Pakistan, and in other countries if this has really got to work.
What would help with that?
Well, this is a million-dollar question, but at the end of the day...
multi-billion-dollar question.
That's true. But if India and Pakistan don't talk, this can't happen. And unfortunately, as we speak, India and Pakistan are not talking. They haven't been talking for months. And the Modi government, took a stand on conversations with Pakistan. Pakistan is now questioning whether it has the political space to do that. So unless they sit down and talk about everything, I don't think India-Pakistan will move forward.
Tarun Vijay, one more last question to wrap this up. What do you think Indians have taken away from this visit?
The biggest takeaway is cordiality and restoring the trust that existed before '62. All these years were the years when we were described as adversaries and having a big trust deficit. With Modi visit, which is unprecedented, historic, no Indian Prime Minister has received so much of warmth and a very, very visible welcome that Modi has received. And this begins an era where we can trust each other. Everything else is possible if we trust each other, and that is the biggest takeaway to me.